Hello, Anders. Welcome to
Hello.
this interview. My name is Alfonso on behalf of Retumba, a
Mhm.
Mexican YouTube channel slash blog dedicated to spread the news about the new age of stream music, as we like to call it. Thank you for being
Okay.
here today.
Well, thanks for having me.
I would like to treat this interview more as a casual conversation. Of course, I will ask
Hmm.
you questions, but let's just go wherever the conversation or the flow uh,
Okay, very good.
guides us.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Hmm.
first of all, I like to give time to my guests to speak about their passion for music as a listener, how they
Hmm.
were introduced to it in the first place. I know this maybe has to be like a long callback for you.
Hmm.
But how did you discover your taste for extreme loud music? How do you remember those years?
Well, I remember I was maybe 11 years old, and a friend of mine uh brought back some he brought back a tape with Metallica. So it's
Okay.
a very classic, like, typical, like, this was back in the very early 90s, so very, very typical history, I guess, from that period. So that was the start. Like, I heard Metallica, and there's something about discovering music when you're like in when you're a kid and in your early teens and stuff, where everything happens, like, at least back then, even though we didn't have access to the internet or stuff like that. Everything happened really fast, considering how much time I take to kind of get into new stuff now, I guess. I'm kind of surprised thinking about it, how, like, it started out with me listening to Metallica, and then maybe 5 months later I got into more extreme music, like
Mm.
Sepultura first, and then Dayside, and yeah, and Cannibal Corpse, and a lot of the old classic, like, thrash and death metal bands. Um, but, like, I mean, within the course of a year or two, I was kind of deep diving into very extreme metal. So and this was also, of course, we're situated in Norway, so this was around the time where there was a lot happening in Norwegian black metal and a lot of controversy. I remember that I think it was like the summer or fall of 93, I guess, or the spring. And we were planning to, I mean, we were only kids, and we were planning to go to Øystein Aarseth's Euronymous record shop in Oslo, but
Okay.
yeah, but it shut down and he got killed, and then there you have it. So it's yeah, so this was in the midst of that. But we were like, me and my friends, we were way younger than, like, at least like 4 or 5 years younger than the
Mm.
kind of the average uh well-known guys back then. So yeah.
And at the time, you were acquainted with the likes of Metallica, Sepultura, and then
Mm.
black metal. Not that much in the whole uh, sphere of metal or metal as a whole. Black metal, and then
Well,
these other bands.
no, I mean,
I
I started out with a very early passion for, like,
Okay.
grindcore and
Mm.
death metal and grindcore, and also like hardcore and hardcore punk came into play. And then I spent a lot of time listening to black metal, but also always with other kind of subgenres, and also other styles of music
Mm.
at the same time. Yeah.
I ask you this because, well, I have spoken with artists from Norway from those years, and they talk
Mm.
about how black metal was the guys around the block, their friends, so it was
Mm.
their music, and they
Mm.
played that if they will have uh, grow up in Seattle in the 90s, probably Nirvana will be their
Mm.
big thing, right? And I
Mm.
ask you this because, well, the 90s were huge and big with the rise of grindcore, your main style of beating to death.
Mm.
So
Mm.
did you try other styles musically or vocally before setting with grindcore?
Yeah, I mean, my kind of musical background was I actually started out as a guitar player. I'm a vocalist now, but I started out as a guitar player. And I also did some vocals when I was in my early teens, mid-teens, and started. I mean, my first band was more like a proto thrash metal band, and then yeah, and then within maybe a year or so, we got really interested in black metal, and we did a few rounds of like trying out that style. Recorded some demos and tapes and did a few shows, and then I kind of left music for a couple of years, and then joined in with some other guys that were more into more alternative, like more kind of 90s influenced metal actually. So I did that for a while just as a guitar player, and then I started a band in the early 2000s, which was more like fairly kind of progressive, more in the vein of death metal. And I did that for many years. But I always wanted to play grindcore, so that was what my first take on grindcore was actually Beaten to Death. So that came much later. Yeah.
Interesting. So you tried out different things before getting into Beaten to Death. I imagine those were good years as a metal listener or street music enthusiast. You know, taking the travel to the music store was part of the experience. Choosing a record by the cover and not having a clue perhaps of what song will be. Do you have a memory of that kind of record that you faced and were surprised by?
I try to like I have a lot of like fond memories of picking up records and not really knowing what it was. But I don't know if I can like pick out one where I was like, wow, this is let's see. Because I have very fond memories of like I'm still a big collector, and now I have a fairly big vinyl collection, and also still a CD collection. And I remember I vividly remember getting into a vinyl because I was kind of in my teens. I was mainly buying CDs. But this friend of my family, she was into more extreme metal in the 80s, and she realized that I was getting into this kind of music, and she gave me 2 albums on vinyl because she wasn't listening to it anymore. And that was kind of the first 2 vinyls I ever got, and that was Bathory, Blood, Fire, Death, with this beautiful like gatefold cover, and Paradise Lost, Gothic. That was my first 2 albums on vinyl, which kind of sparked this interest. And after that, I started buying a lot of vinyl, like in record fairs and stores and stuff. But I'm trying to think if I can remember like one of these experiences where you walk into a shop, you pick up something, and you kind of get blown away. Like I have some of those. Actually, I was also like when I started out, like in my early teens, I was also heavily into like tape trading, which was big in the 80s and 90s. So I kind of got the last couple of years before tapes kind of faded out for almost 20 years before that, or more before they're more or less back now. But yeah, so I got a lot of those things, like some albums from tape trading that kind of blew me away. And like one of my favorites, which is a favorite to this day, is it's an Australian band called The Damaged. And they have an album called Do Not Spit that I got via tape trading.
Like Industrial Death, or am I wrong?
It's not industrial. No, it's not industrial.
Okay.
It's more it's fairly organic music. But it's super heavy, kind of spastic.
Oh,
A fair amount of it's like both kind of groovy and but also a fair amount of like blast beats and stuff. Yeah, I remember I thought it was fairly modern sounding back then. Like I remember I was kind of impressed by the production. And they had like some melodies and grooves that were more like kind of late death era style like grooves. But as I said, very like spastic music, and I remember just getting that tape. I hadn't heard about it before, and I was just blown away.
As you were discovering new bands, what kind of sounds or elements or characteristics were you searching for in a band? Like, what kind of was it the experimentation, the fun of it?
I think definitely like at least in the early stages, like if it like experiment like sounds I hadn't heard before, basically. Experimentation, but also like I was also like extreme sounds, like both vocally, like I was always looking for like the more extreme vocalists or like the ones that you could hear kind of had powerful voices. And when it comes to music, I was also kind of just on the search for something that was just new and more intense than the kind of the last one, which
I think that's the main goal for every music fan, to find something new, to make that to record that sound, even if you don't listen to that again, never again, but to hear that the experience of acknowledging that this is something new to your head. I think that is the fun part. I this resonates with me. As a vinyl collector, do you focus on old releases or are you searching for new acts?
Both old and new, and I also like now I have a fairly big collection of metal, so I actually don't buy that much metal anymore. Like I still kind of go on the lookout for like grindcore albums and stuff that I'm also really into like a lot of like old thrash metal and crossover.
Okay.
So I have a fairly nice collection of crossover. So I'm always looking for stuff in that vein, like especially grindcore and stuff. But I collect a lot of other stuff like jazz and a lot of like hardcore punk and I mean even like some like classic rock and yeah, a lot of different genres and progressive rock. I'm super into this band Magma from France. Yeah. So that's like my I'm always looking for new Magma records that I don't have in my
What would Magma sound in these days, with all the context? I can't imagine. They were like very weird and experimental. To this day, I don't think they can be compared to anything else. So these things you're describing happened simultaneously as you were exploring creative approaches to different styles of metal, right? Proto thrash, prog death metal, black metal at one point. So your take, or I'm guessing this was your input, was to approach it from the experimental side, these things. So black metal nowadays is like perhaps the main style to do weird things, experiment and stuff. Thrash, I don't think it has evolved in that way. It has stayed in like the more it's more traditional.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And grindcore, well, getting into the conversation about grindcore, what about that genre was it that made you try it?
Well, just going back to being on the lookout for like extreme sounds. I think
Okay.
like a lot of grindcore still to me is like the most intense, and this is a genre where I have experience to find some of the best extreme vocalists, and but I mean, like, there's a lot of grindcore like that also kind of just doesn't interest me, but I've always been super into like some of the bigger names, and I think it is a genre that has also branched out where you have a lot of experimentation in like, and in some effect, the grindcore has kind of started bleeding into other subgenres of metal, like in the same way that black metal has. I think black metal in a much bigger way, but you can hear the difference. Like if a band which is kind of situated maybe not in black metal or in grindcore, when they do blast beats, you can hear kind of what style of music the influence comes from, and I think just as often from almost just as often from grindcore as black metal. I think if you know what I mean, it's yeah. So I think and that yeah. Why did I want to play? Yeah, that's what you asked. So I think as I've also I've always been into this music. I always wanted to kind of try out to play this kind of music as well, but I never found the right like group of people, and Beaten to Death was actually kind of it was actually an existing project before I joined. It's like this, and it's the same group of people still, but I joined in 2010, and they just like done some basic like rehearsal recordings and stuff before I joined, several years before, but they never kind of got it up and running. So when they decided to try and like get more seriously into it, they contacted me to ask if I wanted to join, because I had just recently my main project, which was this more progressive death metal band called She Said Destroy, was put on ice, and then I got to hear some songs they were Beaten to Death were doing, and I realized this is finally my chance to kind of do a take on grindcore. And I mean that grindcore has always been our starting point, but we try to not limit ourselves to that.
Not to mention She Said Destroy, I remember listening to a fairly new song. Is it yours? That song is yours? From
She Said Destroy, yeah. It's kind of, I mean, the band was put on ice in 2009. We released an EP in 2012 that was recorded in 2009, and we've been talking about doing more music for many years. So we released a new album in 2021, which is kind of a stripped down lineup. It's from the old She Said Destroy lineup. It's just me and the guitar players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I've received that email about the new song. Yeah. I think it was the same publicist, Viral Propaganda. I don't know.
It was. Yeah, absolutely. It's the same label as Beaten to Death.
Oh, nice. Well, hopefully you'll release something in the future, because the sound is great. I would like to hear more of that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're planning to do another album sooner or later, but we live in different countries, so it's kind of hard to to find time.
So to this day, you remain your main approach is the unconventional forms of styles of music.
Yeah, well, yeah, probably yes. Yeah, I mean, I'm still I'm very much into my, like traditional Florida death metal bands and stuff like that. But
As a
I'm always
creative,
key. But I'm very much into more experimentation and yeah.
well, I discovered Beating to Death in 2013 with that record, and well, it was like a big discovery for me. To this day, my main two
Oh,
references from Norway grindcore are Beaten to Death and Sudoku. I don't think there
yeah.
are other names. I don't remember if there are different grindcore bands out there that are as big on being experimental and
Mm,
far fetched. But well, it was like it made an impact on me, and
mm.
I have continuously followed your career. And
Okay.
well, just to say something, it seems to me that Beaten to Death is not interested, or perhaps never has been interested in as to be called quote serious grindcore band, or that you intentionally have tried to get rid of the usual grindcore notion. So
Mm,
of course with the approach to the genre, but also with the album art, etc. No, the
mm,
presentation, the usual categorization of it. So just a starting point is this question as a starting point. What type of
mm.
straight music audience would you say is your music aimed for?
I don't. When we make music, I don't. We never really think about the audience. This is very much like Bidden Death has become very much an outlet for the members for just doing whatever we kind of feel like. And it was never really a plan to be a full-time band.
Mm,
And we still have like this kind of dogma where we've said that we're only doing this as long as we're having fun,
mm,
and we're only doing this as long as we're not losing that much money doing it, because let's face it,
expensive.
it's not yeah it's I mean playing extreme music is not it's not a cash-in operation.
Yeah.
So that has always been like, this is an agreement that we have in the band. And also we've just, I mean, all of us, we've had a lot of experience from other bands before. Like I had like my a fairly long run, like around 10 years with She's a Destroy before we stopped playing live, where we tried to focus on that band as a serious band. And it's the same with most of the members of Beaten to Death. Like they've tried to do the kind of serious bands, the right kind of look on the album art and everything.
Yeah.
And now we're just doing whatever we kind of, it's just kind of
Because
free form.
because you don't
Yeah.
see some extra consequences of being taken seriously because it's not your
Yeah.
main
Yeah. No,
source
we
of
don't
income.
care.
Yeah.
And this is of course led to a lot of people that are maybe to have a too kind of self-conscious or serious take or kind of entrance to metal as a genre, might take offense or might think that we're stupid,
Mm,
because we might have now and then we have some fairly jokey songs, or kind of we do things that make us laugh.
yeah.
But we absolutely take the music seriously. Like it's super serious for us, and we very much kind of go all in, both when we record, when we make our music, and live. But of course, a lot of people don't kind of like this approach. but it doesn't matter to us because we're old, so we don't care that much anymore about, you know,
I mean,
how popular we are or whatever. Yeah.
Back to my point, you can't create this type of sound or music by being half-assed musician. You know, you have
No,
to take it seriously. And
mm,
now that you're talking about this, I remember a recent conversation with the composer from In Vain, also from Norway, and
yeah, yeah.
he talks about not being a full-time musician and devoting his free time uh, here and there to make the new albums, which it take them like 7 or 6 years to release
Yeah.
something new.
Mm.
So would you say that if you have taken a different path of being more full-time band or musician, this will have affected your creative input, you know, having
Well,
fun and being creative and such?
well, it's when I say that Beaten to Death is kind of a full-time band, I more mean that it's our main focus as
Okay,
musicians, whereas we all actually have
different jobs,
like
yeah,
we
day
have different
jobs.
jobs. Like I have a like a government job,
Oh,
and
a
yeah,
sweet and tie job.
yeah, that kind of yeah. I sit in an office basically, yeah. And some of us have families and stuff, so it's we're not a very active touring band anymore. Like we try to do stuff when we have time, and we try to have kind of a fairly regular cycle on releasing music, like on making, recording, and releasing music. But it's not like we're following a plan, and it's not like I mean, our new album is coming out now
A
in
week?
about a
Yeah.
week's time, yeah. And we have like one show lined up. So it's yeah, so
I,
it's
I remember finding out about this new album from a single of you playing live like a year or 2 years ago, right? It was the video
yeah,
of that
yeah.
show. So it's a slow process until
It's a slow process. Like this album was actually like we record all the instruments live, and then we do vocals afterwards.
okay.
And the instruments were all recorded in the summer of 2022, and then we did vocals sometime last year, and it's a slow process. Like, yeah, because that's sometimes it takes a lot of just scheduling to find time to
And
get
that's not
things sorted. Yeah,
that's not fun. That's not the fun part of
it's not the fun part. No, it's not.
um well, every time you I find out about a new record, my impression is like I need to listen to that album. It's gonna be
Mm,
fun, great, interesting, you know, entertaining. And
mm,
for me, the record that marks created a shift in your discography or your sound was
mm,
Agronomicon, a different
mm.
tone. It was for me like a makeover in which you modernize your sound, your groove, your production. I don't know. So my question to that is, what changed in your approach to or your process to making an album for that record?
Um, I what changed? I'm not sure. Well, actually, I think that like I guess that the three previous albums were all recorded in our rehearsal space,
Mm,
and after that we started finding different rooms to record in.
mm,
So that Agronomicon was, first of all, I think Agronomicon is a very intense album. Like it's probably our most intense, like most kind
yeah,
of brutal sounding album, I
yeah.
guess. And that album was recorded in that we actually rented a studio room to do the do the instrument recording. And then the next album after that, then we started looking for. We were interested in finding rooms with different acoustics. So this first, like in Agronomicon, was a studio room, which is it's kind of dead, you know. It's like not that much happening in terms of the sound of the room, I guess. But after that, we wanted kind of the acoustics of the room to kind of shine through, especially in the drum sound. So then we, for the next album that was released during the pandemic, we recorded we actually rented like a TV studio room. And then this album was recorded at the live venue. So we actually, so but not before an audience, but we got to use that room too, because we wanted even like more kind of just natural acoustics instead of just adding reverb or adding kind of room sounds.
Okay.
We wanted the acoustics. So that's kind of what changed, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
other than that, other than that, I don't think we really have changed our approach to writing or anything. It's kind of the same process still.
You don't question anything about, oh, let's make this intentionally different or have different elements here and there.
No, everything is more or less by accident. Also, okay. Except for, well, we talked about looking for a different room, but other than that, it's just what happens with like the direction of the sound.
Well, for a band that is mainly focused on experimenting within the conventions of speed and raw and aggression, and being direct and perhaps not second guessing anything, how would you say the band has ensured to keep pushing forward and want not to get bored yourselves with your own sound and music, and to continue to be interesting for your audience? Although I'm guessing this is just an accident.
Well, yeah, it's I don't know if I have a good answer to that, really. We're still doing more or less the same process as when we started out. We have everybody in the band contributes to write music, we have some main writers, like it's the guitar players and the bass player. But I mean, I also contribute riffs from time to time, and the drummer contributes riffs from time to time. So I guess it's just that we have input from several people, which also approach music differently. Like a lot of the music is written, or most of the music is kind of composed in the rehearsal space, whereas some of the songs are maybe composed, like one of the guitar players make more or less a skeleton of a whole song at home and then brings it to the rehearsal. And so we have kind of some different strategies, I guess. It's, I don't know if we actively kind of, I don't know what we do to keep it fresh and interesting. I think we're very confident in this thought that as soon as it kind of gets boring and we're not having fun, we know that we're going to just shut down the whole thing. So it's and that hasn't happened yet. So yeah, hopefully we have a couple of more albums.
Well, it seems to me that you are still having fun with it. The title of the new record is Sunrise. What?
Sunrise Over Rigor Mortis.
Sunrise Over Rigor Mortis. That's a clever way to put it. Well, as for what I read in the press, this album is about getting old and perhaps aging gracefully, and
or disgracefully.
Oh yeah, that's also, there's a big chance of that. As a band, as a grindcore band, you know, well, I'm perhaps being reductive as just calling you grindcore, but well, as a band with this fast approach to music, and getting old, you know, I've seen artists discuss their music, and I have discussed this with some other musicians. As they get old, you know, the body gets tired, and the restraint, the resistance and stamina gets lower. So naturally, their music it's less intense. And but with a grindcore band, that let's say for example, Carcass, you know, they're making different things now. I think the band has aged gracefully. Their sound is fun to this day. But I mean, you're not that old. The band is not that old. The members are not that old. But the genre is very demanding. So you're speaking about perhaps you will stop with you're not having fun. So not having fun will perhaps maybe mean not being as fast and, you know, as
I think like
radical.
I think like I mean, our music is very much centered around like intense parts with blast beats, and then we do a lot of like, you know, other stuff in between. And I think we kind of were very into jumping from the one thing to the next within the same song. So of course, if you know, like as you say, like if you come to a point where you don't have the stamina to do that anymore, of course it will probably make it less interesting for us. But and that's kind of also what we're what we're singing about on this album. Yeah, it is a lot about, you know, the kind of the strain that this puts on us, and we approach it very like tongue-in-cheek on this album, and we talk about like the you know, the bodily decay and stuff. But this is a lot of it is based on own experiences of you know, how you, it's for some of us it's hard to get out of bed when we're on tour, because maybe you should have moved that much around on stage the day before, or you know. So
I'm trying here to find some sort of measurement or scale in your creative input to perhaps understand a little bit better your intentions, because for one, I don't know what the hell are you talking about. It's a mystery to me. I'm here for the music and for the fun of it. So I'm grasping. I will grasp a little bit longer about the things you mentioned before, speaking about age, the effect on the body that comes with age. What can you tell me about these reflections? Are these offer perhaps a more serious approach to lyrics, or like a sort of introspection for you?
Both yes and no. It's kind of course, for all of us, when you start like we're all of us are in our 40s or 50s, so we're kind of we're kind of starting to feel the strain on on living. But it's of course, it's, I guess the approach lyrically is often may sound like a joke, but it's also just a reflection of kind of feeling the kind of both like experiencing that you're changing with age, both as kind of a fear of change, but also kind of just like observing what's happening with interest, I guess. So it's both. It's like I've had some interesting experiences myself that is directly related to playing this kind of music over the last year, where I've been extremely confident with my like vocal style, and with I have a fairly flexible voice, so I can do a lot of kind of different styles. But I actually, in connection with some shows that we did last year in the autumn, I actually kind of I got this vocal damage or like a muscular damage, like the muscular strain in my throat, and that has never happened before. Like this was new to me, and this is most likely because I've maybe pushed it too far, and it might have something to do with age, and it might have something to do with other things. But that was kind of a first kind of going back to what you talked about earlier, kind of realizing maybe that you can't play as fast as you did before, and that's my kind of fear, is that my voice is going to start sounding shitty. So, but I had to kind of change my approach. I had to do like some vocal coaching, and I had to kind of change my screaming style slightly. Luckily, it doesn't sound less extreme. So it's just I kind of had to tone down a bit, and this kind of, I think that this whole experience for me kind of ties into the thematics of the album, because this is very much what we're talking about, like having this experience where you feel that something is kind of failing physically, for example, or you're starting to lose your hair, or stuff like that, which can be very touchy for some people. And I guess we're probably just using it as kind of a type of therapy, I guess.
To
speak about these things in music.
Like some sort of escapism.
And
okay, so the intention behind the lyrics has nothing to do with the music. It's just separate aspects of it.
I guess. I mean, it's not like we've had a clean-cut message throughout the career of the band. We touch on a lot of different themes. We have some songs that are political, which is very much a kind of a grindcore approach. But I can't remember if we have any on this album. Like it changes from time to time, but I have a tendency of touching on some like more political themes from time to time. But it's we're not really a kind of a theme band. It's the music first, and then kind of the themes of the music or the lyrics afterwards.
I want to mention this band, Gridlink or Gridlink. I don't know if you're familiar.
Gridlink, yes, absolutely. I love,
They came back after a hiatus of perhaps 9 or 10 years. I don't know, and with a great record, and
it's amazing record.
Amazing record, and it's very much about these things we are discussing about. Well, slightly different, recovering from a disease.
He had this Takafumi Matsubara. He had this kind of muscular disease or something, didn't he?
Some sort of atrophy. I remember.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, again, it's about the passion, because you are putting you are offering your health, or putting your health at risk by doing this thing continuously, and well, it paid off in the case of Grindling, because the result is absolutely explosive. I don't know.
It's amazing. And have you heard this guy, his solo album?
No, what is it
Guitar
called?
player? No, it's just his name, Takafumi Matsubara.
Oh, okay, I haven't.
It's I think the album is called Strange, Beautiful, and Fast. So it's basically his, like, all of his, and it came out a couple of years before the Gridlink, because the Gridlink album came out last year, didn't it? So I think this was like a couple of years ago. Very good album, man. He's got a lot of different very good players on the different songs and stuff. So that is definitely like one of my favorite guitar players in grindcore. Like anyone who's not familiar with him should really check out like any of his bands, like Mortalized or Retention Terror or Gridlink. Yeah, he's got a lot of good stuff. That's
it's one of those bands that changed the game.
Absolutely.
Like, when you're listening to that sound, well, in my head I am like, okay, it's a different era for music. This couldn't have existed 15 years in the past. I don't know.
No, but I mean there's also a link with actually with Gridlink. There's a link back to what I thought for many years was like, okay, where will grindcore go now? Which was the first time I heard Discordant Saxes, which is the same vocalist as Gridlink.
Yeah,
and I remember when their album Inalienable Dreamless came out in 2000. It just I remember it just blew me away, and I was like, this is a game changer. And then Gridlink comes along, and they kind of especially with the Longina, the album they released before going away for 10 years, is also just amazing, so it's so they are definitely some players that are important in grindcore. But I think now there's a lot of good bands.
For example, which bands?
Let's see. Now I'm just saying things without being able to follow it up straight away with names. But
yeah, I'm trying to think of another names, grindcore names that are up to date, let's say.
Let me see. I have to think about it. What
well, perhaps the more obvious example is Canal Decapitation, with their I don't know if you like their new sound or their direction they
I'm
went
not
for.
I'm not particularly into them. I kind of find it entertaining that they had I thought it was interesting when they kind of added more or less kind of vocal hooks into the music that were really catchy. I thought that was interesting. But I think I'm not very fond of like the sound of them, like the production. It's too it's not very dynamic to my ears. But
and this other band, Cephalic Carnage, did you like them?
Yeah, absolutely. But I haven't. I don't know. Have they done anything in many years? Like no, because I was really into like Lucid. Yeah. I was really into like Lucid Interval and Xeno Sapien and stuff when that came out. Yeah, very good music.
I spoke with the bassist, and they have something new in.
Oh.
Yeah, in the chamber. Hopefully next year or the year after that. I remember a band name from Australia, Milking the Goat Machine, sort of spacey, dissonant grindcore.
Yeah, okay. I haven't heard that. I have to check that out.
I will send you the name here in the chat.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay. Well, for me, it will be interesting, the idea of, with age and the limitations of age. For example, listening Beating to Death force different avenues to their music, less intense, but still keeping it fresh. And I don't know if it will come to that, to a point, but this record is still very fun and, very demanding as a listener. And that's what I appreciate of it.
Thank you so much.
I want to ask you also about the album cover. This is again another artwork by the same artist, William Hay. I don't know if the band discovered like something in his work, in his color palettes, that suited the band best, or why him?
Well, I used to work with him.
Oh,
We used to
okay.
work together, and we ran a bar together, a cocktail bar
Mm,
in Oslo several years ago. And his approach to drawing and painting just fascinated me. And he's got all these weirdities. He's an amazing artist. And so and the first album cover he did for us was Agronomicon.
mm,
And we've basically just we've got a very good relationship with him where
okay.
we kind of just let him know we let him know the title of the album and what were like the themes of the music, and then we don't give him any more leads. Like it's out of our hands, and it's up to him to kind of interpret what we're doing. And sometimes he gets to hear the music before working, and sometimes it's not ready. So yeah, but
Mm.
it's he is free reigns. So this is we kind of leave it up to him actually, because yeah, he always does amazing things.
So you just accept whatever he comes with.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm watching the artwork and I don't know what to make of it, but I like it. And perhaps that's
Yeah.
the best description also for Beating to Death at this point. I don't know what to
Mm.
make of it, but I like it, and I'm here
Well,
for it.
that's yeah. Mm. I'm glad to hear that, because that's kind of for us, that is what we kind of want to hear.
And
Yeah.
it's also about the nature of the style, you know, fast approaching to anything, not second
Mm.
guessing, just little bit of time to perhaps digest, just notice things, and then move on to
Mm.
the next thing.
Mm.
Um, as well, I don't know, you have experience with other bands and other projects as a guitarist.
Mm.
Um, but as a vocalist, have you tried to stepping out of your comfort zone in order to just grow and you know come up with different sort of inflections with your voice?
Yeah, I think especially starting on the previous album, a lot more.
Mm.
I started doing like I don't have much of a singing voice, so I will never go there. That I leave to other people. But I wanted to kind of I wanted to kind of dive into more punk style vocals, and like or like hardcore shouty vocals, because I've never really done that before.
Oh,
And I thought, well, this is something I want to try, and it to me seemed like it would be fairly easy, but it turned out to not be easy at all. And so much more respect now for more like classic shouty vocalists, because it's a much bigger strain, especially probably because I don't have the technique down, because I'm not that experienced with it. But it's a very big strain on the voice compared to what I normally do, where I've kind of yeah
and
I have the technique down. So yeah, so that's the only thing I can think of where I kind of try to move out to the comfort zone.
so well, since you creatively have more effort into the vocals or put more effort into
Mm.
it, and when you listen to a band, do you also focus on the vocals? Like, are these a big instrument for you in your own interest, the vocals?
Absolutely, yeah.
And what kind of elements has to be in play for a band or sound for you to be impressed?
Well, it's when it comes to like extreme vocals,
Yeah.
I've or any vocals, like I'm I have a lot of like favorite vocalists like throughout different music genres, and I'm always very much into kind of I'm very interested in phrasing, like
Mm.
how vocalists phrase their music. That can inspire me a lot. And also just the sound of different voices. And when it comes to extreme vocals, it's more a textural thing, like the texture, like of a deep growl, for example, can really give me goosebumps when it hits the kind of the right frequencies. So that's often like bands I come back to that if I think have a very cool sound, like vocal sounds.
What
Other
names?
than that, what names? Well, actually, yeah, like with high-pitched vocals, I would say like the mentioned Gridlink vocalist,
Oh,
John Chang. He's got an amazing voice. Like back from the old days, I was very inspired by Kevin Sharp in Brutal Truth, because he's always done the combination of like deeper growls and like more high-pitched stuff. And also, what else? Like I'm really into like the John Gallagher from Dying Fetus has an amazing voice. Let me see. Yeah, those are the ones that kind of come to mind right away. I also, yeah, it's and we often use like these kind of references when we try out different things in Beaten to Death as well. You kind of reference to, like, especially when we kind of put on like extra stuff on the albums. We all often refer to the different vocalists
okay.
when doing like, okay. So, and sometimes it's just sometimes a song just needs a kind of not that inspired growl, for example, kind of a kind of tired sounding growl, and then we always say like, okay, let's try to do a more kind of late era Chris Barnes, for example, or with, yeah, and we always I don't know if we did, yeah, we did it on like this is one of our kind of vocal recording secrets, is that on more or less every album we have a different approach to the Tom G Warrior grunt, or
Okay,
his
okay.
like ugh. So we
Eh,
do that differently on each album, and it changes like what it is. Like, for example, we can choose a different vowel. Like instead of the you choose an O, or instead of an like a U, or like stuff like that we play around with. And on this album, we're doing like the geriatric Tom G Warrior, which is kind of more like oh.
it's the
So it's
vocalist of Triptychon, right?
yeah, and
Okay, okay.
and Celtic Frost, yeah,
Yeah, in
So that,
Celtic
like
Frost.
Celtic Frost, yeah. So that's more our references.
Are you familiar with the work of Alkaloid or their singer or vocalist
Alkaloid, no.
from Germany?
Alkaloid,
I,
no, I don't think I've heard them.
I would strongly suggest you to listen to
Okay.
his work,
Okay,
because vocally
I will
is
check it out.
amazing. I will send you the name here
Yeah.
with my suggestions. I can't.
No, this is good. I'm Alkaloid. Okay, cool.
It's
I
a
will check it out. Like,
yeah. It's I'm impressed by the vocalist, and the music is
yeah.
great too. Also, I remember two releases from this year in the sphere of grindcore. One is from January, called la band is called Gnoll or Null. I don't know how to
Yeah,
pronounce
no,
it.
no, no. Yeah. They're intense,
Yeah.
and they're just kids. Like, I just remember hearing their first album. And they were like what, like 16, 17 years or something when that came out. A super intense band. Yeah, I'm a fan of them.
A friend of mine called them funeral grindcore, which I don't know if it's a proper categorization, but they are different and particular about their music.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're yeah.
And the other band is, and actually, I think their record comes out the same day as Beating to Death, Aceitas.
I see this. This is new to me. Okay,
Ah.
this is fun. I have to write these down because yeah. I am probably like in our band. I'm probably the one spending the most time checking out new music. It's a very important part of my week every week to just search for new bands. Still, I never grow tired of it. So, and this is like, I guess, the approach where I mean, I'm a music fan first.
Yeah.
And then a musician second. So it's
and being a music fan first doesn't give you like the input or the curiosity to try something that you perhaps heard in a different vocalist, or like I want to try something like this, but slightly similar. Have you done it in the past?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I would say that like a lot of my development has been just from like trying to do the style of different vocalists, and then you kind of realize your own kind of spectrum and your own limitations, and you kind of have to mold your vocals from there. But it very often starts with what someone else has done, and that's the kind of the spirit of music, you know. It's some people might just take things out of thin air, but most people are inspired by something, and very often by other music. So
I just want to mention that at this point, Beating to Death is its own identity, has grown into it. But if I had to offer like a reference for another, like, that someone that perhaps doesn't know about you or the band, is Pyron. And I don't know if I'm
right, yeah,
I don't know if I'm being influenced by the cover, you know, colorful covers. But Pyron, I think it is another good example of crazy sounding music, and also a great vocalist. I don't know if you like the vocals of Dogmore.
I have to admit that I haven't really listened that much to them. But as soon as you said it, I kind of remember their album covers. Like there's this kind of yellow kind of feel to at least one of the album covers with like a hand or something. Yeah.
Yeah, the last two.
I have to go. Yeah, I have to go back and listen to that. Let's see, Pyron. Okay, yeah, I'm adding it to my library. There we go.
Well, since you are a music fan first, I need to take this opportunity to ask you for some recommendations beyond the music, the metal genre. What would you suggest to me to listen to?
Well, actually, at the moment, I'm very into like several like Japanese underground bands, because we just came back from tour in Japan, and we played with so many great bands there. So I've been very much into a couple of those bands that we played with. So I can write it down for you, but it's I'm very much into like this. This is like, I mean, Japan is like this country who's had an amazing underground scene, and which where the bands are still very, very much underground, and it's I feel at times it's almost inaccessible also when you're not in Japan. So and they've had this great run of hardcore punk bands back in the 80s and the 90s, and they still do. Like we played with some amazing bands, and there's this band called Ilya. I'll write it down for you, that I'm actually wearing their t-shirt right now.
Oh,
this
oh, okay.
Ilya.
I'm not familiar with them.
No, it's and that's like a kind of Japanese style hardcore punk band. I'll write it down, Ilya, which is really cool and like more intense, super intense kind of grindy bands. You have this band Gueda and a band called Shapeshifter. And all these bands, they're kind of you can find them in like Bandcamp, but I don't think they're on any streaming services outside of that. I'm not sure, but that's like three bands I've listened a lot to lately.
I've never
But no,
read the
I'd
name before.
never heard of them before we met them and played with them, and they just blew me away. So, but other than that, it's.
What do you think of Endon, also from Japan?
Endon is cool. Yeah, absolutely. Endon is very cool.
Also very intense.
Super intense and kind of weird. So that's, yeah, I like them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for those suggestions.
But what else? I'm trying to think, what have I been listening to? Like, I'm also kind of into like from old times. I'm really into like more like like war metal style bands. So I think the new album from Antichrist Siege Machine is very good. They're super intense, and I think they've kind of managed to renew that kind of very narrow, like the very small subgenre, where they kind of brought some clarity into the sound of this kind of genre. It's I really like that.
And war metal seems to me that is a very self-restricted sound or genre. It's very conservative about that. But I've recently listened to a band from Germany called Shahom. It's war metal or bestial black death, I don't know, but incorporating pre-Hispanic sounds, from my country, and these pre-Hispanic instruments, wind instruments. It's really weird.
Cool. I'll have to check that out.
I think I wrote it correctly. Shahom, from the label Sentient Ruin Laboratories.
Okay, yeah, I found it here. Not so. Okay, so they're German?
Yeah.
Okay, I wouldn't have guessed by the name and the. Yeah.
I mean, to us, it's cool to see bands from other parts of the world, like assimilating our history or cultural sounds, our folk instruments, and especially a band of war metal. I wouldn't have guessed that.
No, that's cool. I will check it out. That's fun.
Okay, last question here, and I hope to get an answer. If you would compare or assimilate whatever is in your head about this record, when you think of it, with another piece of work that exists, like a movie, a painting, a book, anything beyond your own music, which one will it be and why?
That's a good question.
I saved my one good question for last.
No, I think you had a lot of good questions. Well, this particular album, it's like I have to think, like, what kind of It's I don't really have a response. It's yeah, I'm sorry. It's I think this album hasn't really gotten around to like it's not kind of out of my system yet.
Okay.
So it's very much its own thing at the moment.
You haven't
Um,
fully digest the idea of
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Well,
Even though like it was recorded a long time ago, it's been a lot of focus on it now lately. So it's yeah.
okay. Allow me to reframe the question.
Okay.
Beating to death, in
Mm.
general, what would be that other connection?
I would say something fairly absurd.
Mhm.
I would guess like maybe
A comedy with tragedy?
maybe a comedy like more like Monty Python or something, or
Okay.
like when we're talking about Monty Python, maybe something directed by Terry Gilliam, like Brasilia or
Mm,
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It's something that
mm.
in that term where it's kind of absurd.
And bizarre.
There it's bizarre, intense, humorous, kind of scary. Yeah, I would say probably something
So,
like that.
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the movie, not the book.
Well, it could be the book, but I'm thinking like there's this. I remember seeing that movie the first time, and I saw the movie after I'd read the book, and I really felt that that was one of the few times where I've read the book before seeing the movie, where I felt like the book was kind of
Come to life.
yeah, it was kind of put into life, and it was recognizable as the original work, because the book is also super intense. So it's yeah.
Okay, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I like that. I didn't expect, but it fits great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your time. This is all I got for today.
Okay.
And hopefully, well, I mean, this is far-fetched, but hopefully sometime you came to Mexico to play here.
We would love to. Like, I mean, we would absolutely love to play Mexico. I mean, as I said, we just came back from doing several dates, club dates
Right,
in Japan. So
right.
it's
So
we're not
it's not impossible.
it's not impossible. It's not impossible.
Well, I'm sure you will like it here. Our audience is, I mean, it will respond accordingly to your music. Very intense also. So I hope you had a good night, and hope to see you in the future with another record. I will be here
Absolutely.
if you have the time for it.
Very good. Thanks for the interview, man. Thank you so much for your time. It was a super engaging talk.
I appreciate that.
Have a good day.
You too, man.